Welcome to the MTrack 2 training video, Viewing and Editing Client Records. Training Objectives. The objectives of this video are to demonstrate how to view and edit client records. An MTrack 2 client is anyone in the state of Texas who has granted a consent to be added to the Texas Immunization Database known as MTrack 2. This video demonstrates how to view and edit client records using the Manage Client option in the menu panel. Click the Manage Client menu option to perform a client search. On the client search screen, let's select the Quick Search option. Enter the MTrack 2 ID 208105748 to search for the client Brian Blue. Then click the Find button. Because we entered the client's correct information, the client record opens automatically on the View Client screen. Note: for information on how to search for clients, please review the MTrack 2 video, Searching for Client Records. On the View Client screen, the client's personal information displays at the top of the screen and multiple demographic tabs at the bottom of the screen. This screen allows you to view specific non-immunization information related to a client in MTrack 2. This screen is organized by the following demographic sections: personal information, consent information, client AKA, organization information, client information, address information, responsible persons, client comments, and client notes. To view the demographic information, click the down arrow to expand each section. From this screen, you can only view the client's information. To make changes to the client's record, click the Edit Client button. We are now on the Update Client screen. Editable fields are white, and required fields are indicated by blue text and asterisks. Personal information. This section contains client-specific information and is used to verify the correct client after performing a search. This section contains the following information: last name, first name, middle name, suffix, birth date, mother's maiden last name, mother's first name. Client type. MTrack 2 assigns the client type when a new client is created based on which consent is signed. There are 6 client types: IC, MTrack Child, IA, MTrack Adult, FR, First Responder, FM, Family Member of a First Responder, DC, Disaster Consented, and DU, Disaster Unconsented. MTrack 2 Client. A value of yes in this field means that the client has consented to participate in the MTrack 2 registry. All clients have an MTrack 2 client value of yes, with the exception of disaster unconsented clients. DU clients are entered into MTrack 2 for the sole purpose of recording aims administered during an officially declared disaster event and will have a value of no in this field. Gender, Social Security number, Medicaid ID, birth order, birth country, birth state, birth county. Client identifier. If the client has been assigned a client identifier by your organization, then MTrack 2 will populate this field. This identifier is organization specific and does not pertain to any other organization in MTrack 2. MTrack 2 ID. MTrack 2 assigns a system-generated ID number known as an MTrack 2 ID. This number is unique for each client within MTrack 2. Disaster client. If the client receives a disaster-related immunization during a disaster event, then they are considered a disaster client and the field value will equal yes. The last updated by and created by information at the bottom of this section notes the date and MTrack 2 username for that transaction. Clicking the History Table button displays a log of all transactions for this client made by any MTrack 2 user. The pop-up box displays the action, org ID, org name, date, and username of who performed the action. Close the pop-up box to return to the registry. Now let's review the additional demographic tabs at the bottom of the screen. Consent information. This section displays first responder and disaster information retention consent attributes. Consent attributes may only be viewed on this screen and cannot be edited. To edit consent attributes, use the Edit Consent Information link in the Application menu panel. Note: for more information on consent and consent attributes, please review the MTRAK 2 User Manual. Client AKA, also known as. This section is used to add additional names which the client may also be known as. To enter an AKA, you must enter the required information, last name and first name. Let's enter an AKA of Bobby Blue, entering Blue in the last name field and Bobby in the first name field. Then click the Add AKA button. When the screen refreshes, the newly added AKA displays in the Client AKA listing section in alphabetical order. Note: entering information in the bottom demographic tabs is optional, with the exception of the Address Information section. If you choose to add this optional information to a specific section, all fields with blue text and an asterisk must be populated. Organization information. This section contains organization-specific information about the client. Status. The status field represents the status of the client within your organization only. All clients by default have an active status in all organizations. If you change the client's status, the update is only applied to your organization. The exception is setting a client status to inactive, permanently deceased. When this status is selected, you must enter a date of death. The deceased status and date of death is saved for all organizations viewing the client's record. For our example, let's change the client status back to active. Note: for a definition of the status options, please review the MTRAK 2 User Manual. Provider PCP. Use this field to select the client's primary care physician. This information is mainly used for reporting purposes. Note: the PCP list is a list of clinicians that were added during the registration or renewal period. Tracking schedule. This field defaults to the ACIP, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, schedule, but a different schedule can be selected. The selected schedule impacts the immunizations recommended for the client. Date of death. If the client's status is permanently deceased, this field becomes active and a date of death must be entered. As previously mentioned, the deceased status and date of death will display the same for all organizations. Allow reminder and recall contact. This option will default to yes and allows reminder recall notices to be sent to the client for immunizations due or past due. Last notice. The date the client last received a reminder recall notice. Client identifiers. Organizations can give their clients a unique alphanumeric ID in addition to the system-generated MTRAK 2 ID. Multiple client IDs may be entered and a primary ID may be selected by clicking the Primary Radio button. In this example, the client already has one client identifier of ABC123. Let's add a second client identifier of 9999RT. Then click the Add Client Identifier button. After the screen refreshes, the newly added ID will be listed in the Client Identifiers section. To make this ID the primary identifier, select the Primary Radio button. To remove a client identifier, click on the checkbox next to the option you wish to remove and then click the Remove Identifier button. After the page refreshes, the Client Identifiers section is updated and the ID no longer displays. Client information. This section provides additional information about the client. Race. Use the checkboxes to select the appropriate races of the client. Ethnicity. Use the drop-down list to select the appropriate ethnicity of the client. School. Use the drop-down list to select the client's school. Note: the school list for your organization can be maintained using the Manage Schools menu option. Occupation. Use the drop-down list to select the client's occupation. Note: this list is predefined and cannot be updated by any user. Language spoken. Use the drop-down list to select the client's language spoken. Information in this section is mainly used for reporting purposes. Address information. This section allows users to view or update the client's address information. This section requires all fields with blue text and asterisks to be populated and is entered when the client record is created. All other fields are optional. Clicking on the View Client Address History link will open a separate window with the client's address history. The client's address history will display. Close the window to return to the registry. Select the No Viable Address checkbox if information was sent to the client and the information was returned as not deliverable. When the client record is saved and next accessed, a message will display at the top of the screen notifying the user to please obtain the correct address for the client. Responsible persons. This section is used to identify and list any person responsible for the client. If the client has a responsible person identified, this section will open with the primary person selected and their information displayed. In this example, there is one responsible person listed. Instructions on how to apply changes display on the top of the client details. To update a responsible person, make the needed changes and then click the Apply Changes button. The updates are visible in the responsible person listing. To enter a new responsible person, click the Add New button to clear the data fields. When the screen refreshes, the data fields are blank and new instructions display at the top of the section. Enter the required last name and first name. Next, use the drop-down list to select the relationship to the client. Let's select Mother for this example. Then click the Apply Changes button. When the screen refreshes, the new responsible person displays in the Responsible Persons listing section. To review and edit a responsible person not already selected, click the radio button next to their name. Then click the Review button. The screen refreshes and the Details for Responsible Person section is loaded with the responsible person's information. To remove a responsible person, select the checkbox next to their name and then click the Remove button. When the screen refreshes, the responsible person listing is updated. Client comments. This section allows users to enter immunization-related comments such as contraindication information, allergies, and vaccine refusals. Comments such as anaphylactic reactions or allergies may impact the immunizations recommended for the client. Note: for more details on which comments impact the recommended tracking schedule, see the MTRAK 2 User Manual Appendix. To add a new comment, use the drop-down list and select the appropriate comment. Enter a start date related to the comment. Note: when saving, MTRAK 2 will validate if a start date and end date are required and will display a validation message if these are required fields. Click the Add Comment button. The screen refreshes and the Client Comment Listing section is updated with the new comment. To remove a comment, select the checkbox next to the comment and then click the Remove button. The screen refreshes and the Client Comment Listing section is updated. Client Notes. This section is used to enter notes on the client. Notes can be added and viewed by any user in MTRAK 2 with the exception of view-only users. However, notes can only be updated or deleted by the user who originally added the note or the MTRAK 2 customer support team. To add a note, enter the note in the text field. If you wish to quickly clear the information, click the Reset Note Text button. To save the note, click the Add New Note button. This will insert the note in the Historical Notes section in a pending status until you save the client record. To edit a note, select the radio button next to the note you wish to update and then click the Review button. Make the needed changes and click the Apply Note Update button. Updates are applied to the pending note. To delete a note, select the checkbox next to the note to be deleted and then click the Remove button. Click OK to delete the note. When the screen refreshes, the note is removed. Clicking the printer-friendly version link will open the notes in a pop-up window to allow for better printing of the notes. When all edits are made to the client's record, you must still click the Save button at the top of the screen to save all changes. Important: even if you have already applied changes in the Below Demographics sections, it is important to remember to save all changes by clicking on the Save button at the top of the screen, or all changes will be lost. If there is missing information or errors in the updates, the screen will display a validation error message. Click OK to return to the client record and make the needed changes. Let's review the command buttons at the top of the screen. Clicking the Save button will save data and refresh the screen. Clicking the History Recommended button will save data and redirect users to the client's immunization record. Clicking the Edit Consent button will save data and redirect users to the Edit Consent screen. Clicking the Reports button will save data and redirect users to the client's immunization reports. Clicking the Cancel button will disregard any changes and return users to the client search screen. For more detailed information regarding any of these topics, see the online user manual located on the Related Links tab. Please review the other MTRAK 2 videos at mtrak.dshs.texas.gov at your convenience.